Sorry ladies, the video reached its maximum time length, so we are now on video 2. Where I left off was I just cleared out my list number 1, and this is where you'll put list number 1, where I would put, for instance, the number of red Skittles, and then how often, the frequency of those red Skittle values in my L2. For that last graph where I'd had the test situation, the test where I grouped it between 60 and the 60s together and the 70s together and so on, I would put a midpoint value. So halfway between 60 and 70 would be 65, 75, and so on in L1, and then the frequency in L2 again. After you do that, you can go to second y equals, which is called stat plot. It should be written above the y equals button. Hit enter and choose the one that looks like a histogram. That really should say histogram. Tell it to look at in L1 for your X list and L2 for your frequency list. And how you get the L's is that you can go to on. So we want it to choose the histogrammy looking one. And then if I wanted that to say L1, I'd hit second 1. And then frequency, I would tell it second 2. Now if I hit graph right now, it's going to give me an error because there's nothing in there. But then after that, I would go to my window and adjust my X's and my Y's, keeping in mind that my X's is the range of values. So for instance, for a test example, it would be the range of the highest and lowest test values, and then my Y values would be the frequency, so how often I got those test values. If you would like an additional video on the calculator stuff specifically, there is another video that I have found on YouTube and posted a link under the Chapter 2 videos link, a different place from where you got the activity earlier, and you are welcome to pause and watch that before you go on to the practice, just to see an extra example of how that gets set up. For the rest of you that are pretty comfortable with the calculator, let's look at this first example. So we're looking at the sodium in 20 breakfast cereals. I'm going to go into my stat, enter. I'm going to put in the midpoint into my L1, so halfway between 0 and 40 would be 20, 60, and so on, and I'm going to put my counts in L2. So I'm going to pause the video and catch up with you when I am done typing. Alright, so I have all my values in. They have been plugged into my L1 and L2. Once again, these numbers are the midpoints of these classes over here. You'll notice after you do the first couple, like, oh, there's a pattern. It goes every 40, so I just need to add 40 of the previous number. It'll keep you from having to find the middle number. When you get into larger numbers, makes it a little bit easier. So now I'm going to go back into second y equals and make sure after I hit second y equals, I hit enter to get into plot 1. I need to turn it on. So if it was off, I would go over to on and hit enter. I'm going to choose the third type of graph, that's the histogram. My X list is L1, my frequency list is L2. That is correct. Then I'm going to go to my window and adjust my X's and Y's. So my breakfast cereals go between 0, so I'm going to give myself a little bit of space here, so maybe and I hit the minus 40 instead of the negative 40, so negative 40 is what I'm looking for. Notice I'm going a whole kind of bar over beyond it. Since I started at 0, I'm going to start it at my window at negative 40, and I am ending it about 280, so I'm going to end my Y max at 320. I'm going to have the X scale go by 40s, since that's what the intervals are listed as. My Y min and my Y max is based on the counts. So with the lowest is 0, so negative 2, negative 1 would be fine. I'm about to do it again. I need a negative, not a minus sign. And then my highest is a 7, so maybe go 8, 9, 10 is a nice number. Or Y max and Y scale can just stay at 1. And then I'm going to hit graph. And there is my graph. So I have the first two bars have a count of 1, then there's 0, so there's no bar, count of 4, 3, 7, 2. I can hit trace. Okay, notice that it gives me the first bars going between 0 all the way up to, but not including 40. Then from 40 to 80, 120 to 160, and so on. So I've been able to make my mins and maxes here match my intervals here, and that means I have successfully made a histogram for my data. I'm going to pause here, give you a chance to try the practice problems in your packet. So on OneNote, after the sodium and breakfast cereals, you have several examples here. You can work on these on your own or with a partner if you have somebody else that is at a similar point in terms of watching the video that you are. So please pause the video here, give a try to those 3, come up with the midpoints, make sure you can get the graphs to show up on your calculator, and then restart the video to check your answers. Okay, so let's check our answers here. What I've done is taken a screenshot of my stat enter lists, what they look like, the window that I chose, which yours might be slightly different than that, and then the graph. So on this first one, the class is going between, for instance, 0 to 5, 5 to 10. Just found the number in between those two, then put the frequencies. Since I was going from 0 to 5, I started to give myself kind of a little bit of space on either side. Negative 5, since I ended at 45, I went up to 50. And here's the part that is really important. The X scale needs to be the same. So if your classes are going by 5s, your X scale needs to go by 5s. Then once again, your Y min and max might be a little bit different than mine, just like the X min and max. The X scale is the thing that is the most important. On number 2, I was going from, my classes were of size 10, so 0 to under 10, 10 to 19, and so on. So I found midpoint was 5, 10, 15, 25, and so on. Then I put in my frequencies. Now you may be wondering, why would I ever have decimals here? That is typically an indication that these numbers are actually written to represent thousands or millions. So these are talking about populations, and that is why it is acceptable to have the decimals in there, and that does not throw the calculator off at all. Oops, min looks like I didn't give myself very much space on this one. That was an X min of 0, an X min of negative 10 would have been fine as well. And then in all of these, of course, keep in mind I can hit trace and get the information from the graph if needed. On number 3, I tried to keep the X's pretty much the same so that you wouldn't have to do as much typing, but do notice that this one had one additional entry, so the last one ended at 95. This one, number 3, needs to end at 105 in order for the columns to match up. If you get error dim mismatch, that means your columns didn't match up. So something's missing or something was typed in twice. Go back and check your work. Here's my window for that one and my graph for the projected population in 2075. Comparing the two different population, what happened in the past with the prediction for the future, they are both skewed right. Okay, meaning that the tail is going out to the right, but the number 2 graph is skewed more to the right than number 3. Number 3 does have its highest value, its mode, here more towards the center, whereas number 2 has its highest frequency off to the left-hand side. So that is all that there is for the notes here. Please feel free to use each other as a resource. If anything is just dreadfully stuck in your mind and you're not sure how to proceed, please email me and let me know, and I will try and get back with you before the weekend so that you're not horribly stuck. and then of course we will take some time on Monday to regroup, see what questions need to be answered, and continue on from there. Have a good weekend, girls. Bye.